Today we're going to look at Genesis 48, and what I want to do today is get some interaction. I want you to kind of see some of the way that we can look up stuff and learn what's being said in the Bible. And I just want to give you a couple little things that I do and show you how I work through some of this. So, would anyone like to read chapter 48 of Genesis, 1 through 7?
What chapter?
48.
48.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we was in 49 last week with the blessings of Jacob blessing his 12 sons. Well, 48 is him blessing Ephraim and Manasseh, which is before his sons. So we'll look at that today.
I can read.
Okay.
All right. Sometime later, Joseph was told, "Your father is ill." So he set out to his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to you," Israel rallied his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me and loose in the land of Canaan, and there he blessed me. And he told me, behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. I will make you a multitude of peoples, and will give you the land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. And now your two sons born to you in Egypt before I came to you here shall be reckoned as mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Any children born to you after that shall be yours, and they shall be called the names of your brothers in the territory to inherit. Now as for me, when I was returning from Padan, to my sorrow, Rachel died along the way in the land of Canaan, some distance from Ephratah. So I buried her beside the road to Ephratah, that is Bethlehem. When Israel saw the sons of Joseph, he asked, "Who are these?" Joseph said to the father, "They are the sons of God in his place." So Jacob said, "Please bring them to me that I may bless them."
Okay. All right. Well, what do you guys see in these passages? What pops out to you? What do you think we should do to understand this better? Do you see any connections or pictures or anything?
Not curious, but God is asking for his sons to be his, like these are going to be mine, and then the rest are going to be yours.
Yeah.
That was a little curious to me.
Okay. Yeah. That's when little things like that happen, when something's out of place, it's just weird. Why is that there?
Right.
Dig. You might find some stuff.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, it breaks it down into the two tribes.
Okay.
They end up, because they're going to be split, it looks like.
Yep.
Number 6, where it says, "Your offspring, who you've begotten, is yours, and will be called by the name of your brothers of inheritance."
Okay. All right. Is there anything that doesn't seem like it fits?
Well, kind of putting Rachel in there for
Okay.
death. That doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
And he buried it like in the road somewhere.
Yep.
What about being in the land of Canaan?
Okay. All right. All right. Well, if you wanted to understand this better, what would you guys do?
Ask you.
I don't know.
I'm just being honest.
Okay, how about, do you see any connections with other verses anywhere? Have you heard some of these phrases, verses, names, or anything like that anywhere else? Okay, well, I tell you what, let's go up to verse 1 and we'll just start dissecting this. Now, notice the order of the sons here. Why did Joseph put them in that order? Does anybody know?
Is that their birth order?
That's their birth order. Yep. And if you keep reading in 48 later, this is where he puts them before Jacob, and he puts them in order of how they're supposed to be blessed. And what does Jacob do? Cross his hands. He reverses. So there's a reason why that he did that. Okay. How about in verse 2?
Well, I do have a question on verse 2.
Okay.
In mine, it says, Joseph cometh unto thee, and Israel strengthened himself. Usually Israel's referred to as female, isn't it?
No.
A pronoun?
No, Israel is a male.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood because I thought it was usually a female pronoun because they always talk about the woman of Israel
Yeah,
and her blood, and when she leaves, like in Revelation, they talk about Israel a lot in the Bible as being
Well,
female.
it depends on whether you're talking about the man or you're talking about the country.
Okay. Well, let's look this up.
Verse 2 mentioned he was bedridden, and he set up in bed.
So
Yeah,
they're-
that's a good catch. He was in
So
bed.
they're talking about the.
So they're actually
person,
talking
not
about,
versus the country.
so they're talking about Joseph there as being Israel, correct?
Jacob.
Or Jacob?
Yeah. Yours reads differently than mine, and I think a lot of the other verses for some reason. Does anyone else see, how many names do you see in the verse? Verse 2.
Well, mine says, and one told Jacob and said, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee, and Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed.
Anybody see anything weird in that verse?
Well, then he's actually referring to Jacob as being Israel
Yeah.
there.
Jacob and Israel are the same person. Why do you think he is using two different names in the same verse? Jacob is what? His previous name. And
So Israel is his God-given name now?
yes,
For his, when he dies, is actually going to be Israel then?
yes.
Okay.
Now, actually, he is considered Israel now, and
Okay.
it was when he was given that name after he wrestled with God. Now your name will be Israel.
Okay.
Okay. This is a symbolic picture of when you go from the natural to the spiritual. So I think it's interesting that in my verse, it has Joseph in between. And who is Joseph a typological picture of? Jesus. In all actuality, all of these play different roles. When you read these stories, you look at the different roles that they're playing. Like Abraham's the father. Well, guess what? Isaac is a picture of Christ that was sacrificed and stopped. And okay, then Isaac becomes the father, and now it's Jacob. And then Jacob becomes the father now, and he has a son that he's going to give the firstborn right to, which is Joseph. So Joseph is the picture of the son, Jesus, and then this will later switch. You know, you just keep following this pattern all through the Bible.
So basically, it's the same story over and over and over, just different characters.
It's the same theme, different characters and different scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything, look, when you read the Bible, look at everything and say, how does this point to Christ? How does this point to Jesus? It's amazing what we read over. So this is actually a natural transition. It's showing you a natural trend from the natural to the spiritual here. Okay, verse 3. And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. Now Luz is another name for Bethel. That's where Bethel was. Anybody know what Bethel means? Huh? No. Bait. Anybody know what bait is?
Fishing.
That's what it sounds like it too.
Catfish bait. Okay. Bait is house. And what's El? God. So Bethel is house of God. Okay. Verse 4, it says, and said unto me, behold, I will make thee fruitful, and multiply thee. I will make thee a company of people, and I will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. So fruitful is parah. And if you remember when we were doing the Passover last year, I was saying bri parah hagafen. It's the fruit of the vine, and that's what that is. Okay. And verse 5. And now thy two sons were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine, Ephraim and Manasseh, even as Reuben and Simeon shall be mine.
So he switched to order there.
Good catch. That's a good catch. Why did he do that? Because he's going to give the firstborn right to the one that wasn't born first. This is the typological picture all through the Old Testament until Christ. The first one born didn't get the firstborn blessing in all these stories because it pointed to Christ. The second Adam, not the first Adam that sinned. The second Adam is going to get the firstborn right. Okay. What is the positions of the firstborn? What titles does he fulfill?
Well, first of all, he's heir to the property, but he's also the defender, and he's also the one that takes responsibility for the care of his mother. And he basically steps in and fulfills the father's role when the father's not there.
But
Okay.
he's also the,
First male.
Okay.
but he's also the one that, the term when you, now I don't want to use the word vengeance because vengeance isn't correct, but when you,
Avenger.
Avenger.
yes,
That is what there is. It's called
Right.
Avenger of Blood.
that's what, but vengeance wasn't right, but avenger, yes.
Avenger. Yeah, there's a difference between vengeance and avenger.
Right, and that's
isn't
why I
there?
didn't want to use
Yeah.
that word, but I couldn't think of what the other, yes, so
Okay.
that is also right of
Yep.
the first, right?
Yep.
What if, just looking at a different viewpoint, what if there is no males born?
And that's actually a good deal. If we go to the last chapter of, was it Numbers? That actually comes up. Zelophehad and her sister, they were both, didn't have a male, didn't have a right. So God told them, you know, what the rules were going to be. You know, that if you're going to gain your father's inheritance, but you have to marry within your tribe. If you don't,
Yeah.
then that stays in the tribe. It's to stay there.
Now, I got an uncle, he wanted a son. After 7 daughters, he quit.
Gave up, huh?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
number of completion, he's done.
All right.
So
So-
basically, that inheritance and that part, and that point basically kind of reverts to the son-in-law, right? In a way?
No. Well, yeah, I guess you're right. If they marry in the tribe, but if they marry outside the tribe, it won't.
Yeah.
It's to stay in your inheritance.
So the son-in-law becomes the avenger of the first daughter, maybe?
Yeah, probably. It would be theirs until they died, but then it would revert to someone else, you know, the next in line who would get that. That's one of those little what if things, that what if this happens, and there's a significance there that I haven't studied. So there's a reason that's there. I just can't tell you what it is now because I haven't studied it. So, but that's good catch. Okay, so we noticed that the order has been changed, and these guys are elevated above the position of Reuben and Simeon, who is Jacob's first and second born. Okay, so Ephraim and Manasseh are actually going to take precedence over the rest of his children. Isn't that unusual? Okay. He's also blessing them. He blesses his other tribes in verse 4, chapter 49. We saw that 2 weeks ago. Here we're in chapter 48, which is prior to 49, and he's blessing these guys before his own children. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Is there a specific reason why Joseph was left out of the inheritance? Is it because he was at that point linked up with Egypt as a part of a ruling class in Egypt? That he wasn't included into the heirship of Israel?
That's part of it. Yeah. Why would he need anything? He has already redeemed his family by saving them from the drought and everything. There's another picture going on here as to why he didn't necessarily he got the firstborn right, and he got the firstborn blessing, but he passed it on to his 2 children. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, so Joseph actually does have that, and that's why, there was something I was going to talk about on the constellations. We asked why there wasn't a 10th one, and I messed up. When I put 6 down, that was the 6th son of Leah, not the 6th son of Jacob. So I messed up. That should have been 10. When you go back and look at that, number 6, and I can go back and show you that when we get done here if you want. But anyway, I'm sorry I just threw that in. I messed up. That was the 6th son of Leah, not the 6th son of Jacob. But my pattern was to follow the sons of Jacob, not the wives. I'll show you when we get done here. I'm sorry I threw that in right now. But Joseph did get the firstborn blessing and the firstborn right, but it got passed to his heirs, his children. Why would he need it? He's got the world. Okay? He's got the whole kingdom of Pharaoh and all the world, that everything is under him. Are you guys seeing what this is picturing? Jesus. How is it picturing Jesus? Because Joseph is a picture of Jesus, isn't he? Okay.
He was sold into slavery and Jesus was taken into
Yeah.
prison basically and crucified.
You know, we're not going to have time today, but I'm prepared to go to Genesis 37 and see when his brothers sold him, put him in a pit, sold him into Egypt. I mean, this is a typological picture of what happened to Christ.
Souls for 30 pieces of silver.
Uh-huh. So, all right. So,
What's interesting is 12.
what do you mean?
Well, wasn't there 12 brothers or 12 tribes and all that? But
Yeah.
then there was also 12 apostles.
And now Jacob takes Ephraim and Manasseh, which makes it what?
12.
So how many apostles
12.
were there eventually?
12. Well, there was
No.
11, but originally
There was
12.
13. Because the one hung himself in shame. So then they ended up back down to 12. But there was 13 originally.
Yeah, you guys are on the right track. Let's go back to Jacob. How many sons does Jacob have?
He had 13 because Benjamin. He was the next young one when Joseph disappeared. Then Benjamin came along, and he favored Benjamin since Joseph was sold into slavery and he thought he was dead. So then he would have had 13 total.
Okay, Benjamin is number 12.
Benjamin was.
Yeah,
Okay.
Benjamin's number 12. Joseph is number 11.
Okay.
Okay, so Jacob's got 12, but here he now says Ephraim and Manasseh are going to be mine just as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Now he's got 14. Is 14 a good number? Okay. You have Jacob adding to Israel, his children. He's adopting them. What is this a picture of?
Gentiles.
Gentiles. Joseph goes into Egypt and he takes what kind of wife? A Gentile wife that's not from Israel. And he has what kind of children? Gentile children. And here the father is adopting them back into his kingdom. That picture pictures us. We are grafted in through Ephraim and Manasseh into Israel, into the Father's kingdom. But you have to do that. You have to be a son of who? Joseph. In order for that to happen. You have to be a son of Jesus in order to be adopted into the Father's kingdom in heaven. See all these pictures that are popping out of this? All right. How many apostles were there? 12. And then Judas hung himself, and what did they do? Replaced him with who?
Bartholomew?
Matthias.
Matthias.
Cast lots. And there's one other that comes along that's an apostle. Paul. So now how many?
13.
Well, 13. Judas was one.
14,
He was
so that
taken
would've been
out.
14.
Yep. So here's the pattern. Jesus was removed. Joseph was removed from the tribe, and Judas was removed. Judas has his lot in the lake of fire. Jesus has his on the throne. Joseph is the picture of Jesus. Okay. And Joseph means he shall add, And this picture is Jesus, and Jesus means what? Yeshua. Salvation. Okay? So, when you go back in the story, you know, Joseph is sold, and he's in the world now. He's not in the Father's kingdom anymore. He's in the world. Takes a bride, comes back. His children are accepted and adopted into the kingdom. Okay, and let's do verse 6. And thy issue that thou begettest after them shall be yours. They shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance. So here he's saying, anybody that comes after you, and we don't know whether Joseph had more kids or not. You know, it's just, they're not listed. Abraham had other daughters, and we'll see this in a verse that we're looking at later. Jacob, I'm sorry. Jacob had other daughters. He didn't have just one, Dinah. It's just, they're not pertinent to the story. Adam and Eve had many children. That's how the earth got populated. They're not listed because they're not needed for the story. So anybody that Joseph would have had after them had to come in under Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay, that's what that's saying. Verse 7. Here's the big one. As for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died by me in the land of Canaan, in the way when there was still some distance to come unto Ephrath, and I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, the same as Bethlehem. What are you going to do to understand this verse? This verse doesn't fit. We're getting the blessings. We're telling what's going to happen to Ephraim and Manasseh, and all of a sudden we just throw this in there? How does this fit the context of what we're just reading? See, when something's thrown in there that why? I don't understand why that's there. Dig. You're going to find out something. So if we're going to understand this verse, what would you guys think needs to happen before you can understand this verse?
What does put on mean?
Okay.
That'd be my first question.
Good, because that's actually what we need to do. Can you guys just pass those around? Whoever, just take one. So we're going to dissect these words because these are important. Thank you. I actually didn't mean to put you to work. I just
that's
thought
fine.
we would
I need the exercise.
pass them. So I apologize. I did that. Okay. Anyone, what's unusual in this verse? Anybody see anything unusual in this verse?
That's in verse 7.
Verse 7.
When they was on their way.
He's talking about himself.
Yeah.
As for me,
Yeah.
my sons, he was talking about himself.
Yeah.
And Rachel was the one who was not. So that's important.
Yep.
She not.
Okay.
One of the things that sticks out for me, it says that they were on their way to Bethlehem.
Yeah.
So was that also a picture of them heading toward the time of Christ?
Actually, it was on their way. They were at Bethlehem. Buried her there on the way to Ephrath, the same as Bethlehem. So,
I'm just saying that Ephrath and Bethlehem was the same place.
yes, Ephrath and Bethlehem are the same place. Anybody remember where you heard Ephrath before? Ephratah?
Yeah.
Ephratah. Where have you heard Ephratah? It's in the Christmas story we just did 3 weeks ago. Okay. All right. Well, let's look up this word Padan. And what I like to do is, I'm just going to show you what I do so you guys can do this at home. There are lots of wonderful resources on the internet for free now. I used to work through a Bible Explorer, but I don't anymore. I go through Bible Hub, or you can just go open up a new window and up in the top part say, what does Padan mean? And you'll pull up Wikipedia usually first, but my favorite one is this Abarim, because Abarim, guess what? Abarim is Hebrew, so it comes from the Hebrew understanding, and this means upgrade to operating standard or to high, and the plain of Aram, elevated ransom, an ultimate upgrade. Now you can go to other resources like, well, we can actually back out of there and go to some other resources, but just remember that that means elevated ransom in that particular one. You can go, now notice here that we always heard Padam Aram, haven't we? This is the only place that Aram is left off. It's Padan. Okay. All right, well, I don't see nothing there.
They're talking about your knees.
I saw that too.
I know, isn't that something? Okay. Let's see what the Bible map puts at. Okay.
Yeah, I always thought that Padan would be a city or something. Like, the way it sounds in the Bible.
Padan was what?
A city.
A city. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a place. Okay, where is... See, I don't have my Bible
It
Explorer
also
on
says
here.
a field or plain right there.
Yeah, I think that's what Aram is. But, and meaning of road. Let me see what this says. All right.
It says a field.
See, all of these have Padan Aram except Genesis 37, which is the one we're dealing with. Okay, well, anyway, Bible Explorer is another one that I use. So we saw in the other one, it's a place and place of ransom. So why don't we take on your sheet there in verse 7, you've got Padan, cross out Padan, and let's put place of ransom next to it. Okay. And another thing that you're going to want to do is look up the names. Anything that you don't understand that's in the Hebrew form, look them up. Okay, whether they're names, places, or anything like that, or anything. So let's go back to Abraham. Let's see, what does Rachel mean? Okay, now you, that's a lamb, and let's see if I can find Abraham in here, because I like that one. No, I don't. But anyway, all of these are going to say the same thing for Rachel. It's means lamb. And it really is a unique word for lamb. It's also used in Isaiah 53:7 when it says that the Rachel, the sheep, is silent before its shears, so he did not open his mouth. That's talking about who?
Jesus.
Okay, see how Jesus is, even in the name, female name, Rachel? Okay.
But a you,
So this is going to end up pointing to Messiah somehow. The little ewe lamb.
a
Yeah.
you isn't a lamb. It's an adult.
It's a what?
It's an adult.
An adult?
Ewe is typically means an adult sheep. Female.
I didn't know
also
that.
female sheep. A
See?
ewe would be a female.
Okay.
Yeah, buck would be,
A buck would be a male.
Okay. Or a ram.
yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right. Well, let's look up another word. Let's see. So we know that Rachel means lamb, right? The lamb. Okay. And when I was doing this, there are many different translations of this. It said died by me in the land. Actually, there was one guy when I was looking all this stuff up that said died for me. And I like that. So cross out by and put for in there. And in the land, when I looked up this word land, it's haaretz, or eretz, haaretz. This is the same word that's used in the first verse in the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, haaretz. It's Bereshit, bara, Elohim, et hashemayim, vayet haaretz. So that word haaretz is earth. It can be land, but let's just put earth in here and see what happens. And of Canaan, you asked me what Canaan meant, and I will go to, actually, here's something else I want to show you. In Bible Hub, go to Bible Hub, and come on, you're being mean to me. Oh, now it's going to lock up on me. All right, well, whatever. There it goes. Let's go to Bible Hub. Let's go to Genesis 48. And let's go to verse 7. All right. And if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, it will dissect all your words for you. Now, as for me, there's Padan. And Rahel. And Ba direct along the way and land. Ba Eretz. And there's Canaan. So let's look up Canaan. Oh. dictionary. I always go to Aubergine first if I can find it, but to be brought down by a heavy load is what this says. Brought down. Merchant. Okay, when I looked these up, I went through and looked all these up in all kinds of different places, and I'll just bring up my thing here. This computer's about as slow as a turtle.
Got too many games on
Where have I heard that before?
it.
Well, anyway, while it's opening up. Canaan, when I looked it up, it means humbled, subdued, lowly, merchant or servant. Okay. So, here they are. So I put female lamb in here, and it's not a female lamb, it's a male lamb. A ewe.
No.
No, Rachel means female.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Canaan means merchant, servant, low, humiliated, or humble. Humble fits this. So why don't we cross out Canaan and put the humbled in there. And then in the way is in the course of life. And it means road, a course of life, a mode or action. This is in that Bible Hub I was looking up. So cross out way and put course of life. When there was still some distance to come, I crossed out come and put go. They're kind of the same thing, but we're going to understand that better in English. Okay. Okay, and unto Ephrath. When you look up Ephrath, it actually comes from para. And remember when I was saying fruitful, bari, para, hagafen, it's fruit. So this is Ephrath means fruitful, and another word is Ephratah means fruitfulness, and then that also is translated into the name Ephraim, which is plural, which is fruits, fruitfulness, or S's. It's a plural word, and it's the man's name, Ephraim. So all of those words mean the same thing. It also comes from the word eper, which is ashes or ash heap. Okay, so Ephrath and Ephratah, they have different meanings. Just like our words, we can use different meanings for the words. That's what's going on here in Hebrew. Hebrew usually has several different meanings, or they can have different words that say the same thing.
Synonyms.
Synonyms, yeah, kind of like that.
Like lead, led, all spelled the same, different meanings, same
Yeah.
word, different.
Yeah, those are different. Those are all over in Hebrew because they don't even have the vowels.
Right.
They would just write it as LD. Well, you can take LD and put all kinds of vowels in there, and it has different meanings. Okay, so Ephrath means fruitful or fruitfulness. And then I buried her. Who's her?
Rachel.
Rachel. And Rachel means
Lamb.
Lamb, so write the lamb in there. In the way to Ephrath. Now, we just discussed that Ephrath means fruitfulness, but it also means it also means Bethlehem, but it also means ash heap, like ashes, ash heap. And since there are two words being used in this one verse, you want to look these up and make sure the meanings on them, because when you use the same words, there's something going on there. There's a switch being played in the context of that word. Almost always in the Bible, as far as I know. I mean, everything I'm looking up, there's a switch. So that one would be ash heap. Even though it could be fruitfulness, ash heap is going to fit better. And the same is Bethlehem. Now, what does Bethlehem mean? Beit Lechem?
House of God.
House of bread.
House of bread.
Very correct, yeah, very close. Lechem is bread, so house of bread. Okay, now would someone please read to me what these words got translated to without reading the words, the Hebrew words?
The crucifixion of Christ.
This points to, I believe, the crucifixion of Christ. Okay, so somebody read that, verse 7.
I'll read it.
Okay.
And as for me, when I came from place of ransom, a female ewe died for me in the land, or in the earth of humiliation and being humbled, of course of life, when there was still some distance to go into the fruitfulness, and I buried the lamb there in the way to ashes, the house of bread.
The same as the house of bread. You see what I think this is telling us here? Do you remember when we did Migdal Eder in Micah 5:2? It was telling us that your Messiah would be born at Migdal Eder, Tower of the Flock. Unto you will come Migdal Eder. This is here. And this is why Micah 5:2 uses Ephratah, Bethlehem, in this. Let me read this to you. Micah 5:1-4. It says, "Now muster your troops, O daughter of troops. Siege is laid against us. With a rod they shall strike the judge of Israel on the cheek." Who's that talking about? "But you, O Bethlehem Ephratah," this is the Christmas story, the Migdal Eder, "who are too little among the clans of Judah, for you shall come forth for me." There's your word for. Instead of died by me, died for me. "Who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is old from ancient of days." You see how this is tied to this? Ephratah. These are tied together. Okay. So let me read this again. "But as for me, when I came from the place of ransom, the lamb died for me in my place, in the land of the humbled, on the journey when there was a long distance to the place of fruitfulness, and I buried the lamb in the place of ashes." The same is the house of bread. I believe what that is telling us, myself, no one else, I haven't read this from anybody else. This is me speaking, and it's got to do with that Ephratah, ashes. It can be two words. I believe this is telling us that he was buried at the place of ashes. Remember when we did all the sacrificial things and the red heifer? And I believe he died on the Mount of Olives, where they take the ashes out every day, where all of the offerings were done and taken out. I believe he was put on the cross right there, and there was a tomb that he was put into just real close, and it's by that ash heap. I believe that's telling us, just like Micah 5:2 tells you, he's going to be born at Migdal Eder, Tower of the Flock. I believe this is saying he's going to be buried next to the ash heap.
Didn't they use in Israel, didn't they use the ashes of that red heifer in little small quantities to cleanse
Yep. From what?
from sin?
Yep. Sin, death, and conscience. Yep. And guess what they did with those ashes? They buried them in a place right next to their Mount of Olives. In a clean place, a clean tomb. So do you see how all this is pointing to Christ, no matter how you look at these things? Did you have something?
I was gonna say, I'm wondering if that wasn't the dust that they used to reveal, when somebody was a prostitute or did something that was, that defiled the marriage, when they brought the woman in to say that she had committed sin, and then they gave her something to drink, some dust in water. Was that the dust they used?
No, that was the dust of the temple. They got the dust off the temple floor, put it in water, and made her drink it. That's the Sotak test for adultery. I can't remember where that's at, Numbers 5 or 12 or somewhere. I'm not real sure off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the
I
test
just-
for adultery.
That just kind of popped into my head.
Yeah?
I wondered if that was.
Okay. Actually, when you go back and look at that story, I think that might even be pointing to the wormwood, the bitter water, the myrrh. What is the word? Bitter water. Mara. So, yeah, I think that might be pointing to that, and it might be pointing to the bitter waters that people are going to be drinking in the end times that are not faithful. So anyway, well, what do you guys think about this? This was short, this was little, but I just wanted to give you a piece of how to look this stuff up and get the meanings out of it. Especially when something is just out of place. When it's out of place, spend some time looking at it. You'll find some really good stuff here. Isn't that cool?
Something else too, I found that if you look up, in the middle, people a lot of times don't even pay attention to this, but in the middle, there's little scriptures that link to what you were saying in that particular verse. And if you look up those scriptures and follow the line, a lot of times you'll get an answer to what you're looking for in the other scriptures.
Yep, that's right. They're there for a reason, and they're really beneficial. They show you where the connections are. And not all of them. You really got to have a different understanding to look at also, in addition to those, to do this. Like when you read something, ask yourself, where did I hear that before? Where that happened before, somewhere in the Bible. Where's it at? We'll go look it up. Where did I hear that saying before? They're connected, because the Old Testament, especially Torah, is prophetic pictures of Christ. I am totally convinced that these are the words of God. These are truly the words of God to you. Man could not, when you start finding out what's really underneath, man could not write this.
Especially during the time frame that it was written.
Yes.
That's what really is important.
Yes. And by several people
Yep.
all saying the same thing. It shows you that these people were inspired by God.
Different years apart.
Yes. 1,500 years.
Yep. And even
Way in advance the other guy's time. I mean,
Yep.
even in Isaiah, we was in Isaiah last week, or week before last, and it talked of this one section, I think it was 45. This guy talks about a guy named Cyrus coming in and taking over Egypt. Well, at that time, Egypt was the top country, had the army that nobody could defeat. They were, that was just kind of like crazy to think that somebody would come in. He named this guy Cyrus, And, this guy from, this other country came in there 150 years later, same name, from the same country he mentioned, and took it. Now, how did he know that? He conquered Egypt, Cyrus. Medo-Persian government did that. How did Isaiah know that 150 years before it happened, and knew his name?
Somebody told him. God told him, right? Yeah, the one who knows the future.
Right.
Does he know your future? He knows everything.
Right.
So rest in that. Rest in the fact that God's got this.
You know, I was kind of hesitant when I did that study on Revelation, and my thought was, I don't know enough to teach it, but maybe I could lead a group that would go through it and study it. So that's what I did. You know what I discovered studying Revelation? This whole book is Revelation.
Yes?
It's not just the one in the back. The whole book is a revelation of who God is, who we are in our relationship with Him.
I think we could close on that.
Amen. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Psalm 46:10. It says, "Be still and know that I am God."
Amen.
Be still. He's got it under control.
Amen. I ain't gonna add the death into that and mess it up, man. That's good. Be still and know that I'm God.
And, you know, really, that's where we need to pray for the people that don't, because there's so many people out there that they don't know. And they are in a state of panic because of going blank. And that's-
Operating in fear.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And, I'd pretty safely say that it's the majority of those people out there, not